Chapter 446. The air shifted. A quiet absence replaced the overwhelming presences from moments ago. One by one, the auras of the great saints vanished from the chamber, not suppressed or hidden, but simply gone. They had moved far beyond the capital, in the blink of an eye. Nissa snapped her gaze to the retreating figure of Razeal. "You will leave 10 great saints in the capital?" She spoke without her usual composure, her voice edged with disbelief. "Your strongest strength, and you are heading to the battlefield like this?" Her brows drew together in a mix of confusion and calculation, as she took an involuntary step forward. "What exactly are you planning to fight with then?" Razeal stopped, tilting his shoulder back toward them. He turned his head, his expression indifferent, as if the question carried a flawed premise. "Who said those saints were my strongest strength in the first place?" He shook his head faintly, dismissing the notion as too shallow to take seriously. Silence deepened. The lords exchanged heavy looks, their expressions tightening as the implication settled in. Their thoughts moved in the same direction. The feats tied to this man remained beyond reason. A boy of 16 at most stood at the level of a great saint, a level the Imperial Empress had not achieved at that age. It was not just rare, it was unnatural. Their logic resisted, their instincts rejected, yet the evidence stood in front of them, breathing, speaking, and acting, as if such impossibilities were routine. What kind of existence produced such a thing? Divine blessings and the offerings of gods should not create something so fundamentally inconsistent with the known structure of power. Right. And here he was. His record, his survival, and his actions could no longer be dismissed as rumor. Not when he commanded 10 peak great saints as subordinates. The next thought stung. If those 10 were not his strongest strength, then what was? Their minds moved through possibilities they did not want to entertain. Hidden forces, unknown alliances, some more guards. Or was he referring to himself? The thought lingered. No one voiced it. No one wanted to. If that were true, everything they considered dangerous needed to be redefined. Nissa held her composure. She tightened her fingers at her side before she steadied herself. This was not the time to spiral into speculation. Whatever he was, he would reveal it soon enough. Right now, the war mattered. The kingdom mattered. "Then allow us to come with you." Her tone regained its structure, though not its earlier ease. She exchanged a brief glance with Kael, who gave a subtle nod, before turning back to Razeal. "We can assist in the battle." Razeal did not hesitate. "That will not be needed." The rejection came clean, immediate, and without any attempt to soften it. Everyone understood the implication. In his eyes, they would only get in the way. At best, they would slow him down. At worst, they would become liabilities. A flicker of irritation passed through Kael's expression, his pride reacting instinctively, but he forced it down. The others followed suit. They had crossed the line where pride could dictate their decisions. Still, the sting remained. No one of their standing was used to being dismissed so casually. Nissa studied him before adjusting her approach. "Then at least allow us to observe." Her voice was calm and measured. "This would be the best opportunity for us to understand your capabilities directly, with our own eyes." Razeal considered it. He paused for a moment, showing the request had merit. He gave a small nod. "All right. That can be allowed." The agreement eased the tension in the room. Several of the lords exhaled, shoulders loosening. It was not trust, not yet, but it was something they could work with. Their concern ran deeper than simple curiosity. The stories regarding his temperament, his decisions made without hesitation, his mindset that did not distinguish between acceptable loss and necessary outcome, all painted a picture of an arrogant, brutal, and calculating individual. Worse, he did not seem to value his own life. Reports were consistent enough to matter. He had taken actions in the arena that bordered on suicide, gambles so reckless no sane person would consider them. And yet he had survived. That worried them. If he stepped onto the battlefield with that same mindset, would he care who else got caught in it? Would he prioritize victory over preservation? Would he destroy the enemy, along with their own forces, their cities, and their people? They could not afford that. Not when the kingdom stood on the edge. This was about control. About understanding what kind of force they had placed their hope on. Ensuring the solution they accepted would not become another form of destruction. Razeal seemed completely indifferent to those concerns. To him, allowing them to come was not a concession. It simply did not matter. "I shall come with you too as well." Grace's voice cut through the air. Kael and Nissa reacted immediately. "No, your majesty. That cannot be allowed. I am still the queen." Grace cut them off, her tone calm but decisive. She straightened her posture, forcing herself to hold their gaze without wavering. "And I shall go. The people deserve at least that much. Me staying here will do nothing anymore." Kael tightened his brows. "That is not the point. Your safety." "No." The word was quiet but final. "I will be coming with you." Silence followed, not out of agreement, but because they understood what she meant. Before, she would never have been allowed near a battlefield. A ruler had to be safeguarded against accidents, against assassination, and against the chaos of war. The existence of the ruler was part of the kingdom's stability. But now, the war threatened to erase the kingdom entirely. If everything was about to be lost, what difference did her safety make? That thought had settled in her mind. There was something else, a small, uncertain possibility she could not ignore. If she stood on the front line, if she could somehow reach the head of the Rock family, maybe she could speak to him. Maybe she could reduce whatever anger had brought this war upon them. She did not know if it would work. She did not even believe it likely. But she had to try. Her gaze shifted to Razeal. Please, take me with you. There was a faint restraint in her expression. She did not like him. The rumors about him were not something she could dismiss easily. Her instincts rejected it, but she suppressed them. The kingdom came first. If he could save it, everything else could be overlooked. Besides, from what she had heard, whatever he had done, he had already paid for it. Razeal looked at her eyes for a moment, then shrugged. It made no difference to him. He no longer cared how many people followed him. His attention shifted. You guys. He looked at Sophia and Maria. What do you mean? Sophia replied, catching the look in his eyes. Of course I am coming. Do not look at me like I will stay here. She exhaled, a faint confidence returning to her expression. I have already gotten used to this environment. I am sure I can bring out around 20% of my usual strength now. Maria glanced at her, an edge in her tone. Is it really that hard to adapt? It did not bother me much when I had to fight in water. Sophia narrowed her eyes. That is because you were born with high affinity for it. You have always trained in it. Try stepping out of your element first, then talk. Compared to what you will be, I am doing just fine. She sharpened her gaze. And honestly, you should just stay here in the castle, far away from any battlefield. As what are you even going to do there? Maria lifted her gaze. As far as I know, Sophia went on, you have been useless for a few days, struggling just to adapt to powers which you received for nothing. A brief pause. Weakling. Maria's eyes twitched. The words landed harder than she let it show. It was true she could not use any power for a few days, but that was normal. She had, after all, literally embroidered a law of the cosmos as a mortal. Anyone would need time to recover. But that did not make her weak. It required time, control, understanding, and alignment. She could already feel it. Something was growing within her, settling, shaping itself into something far greater than what she had before. She did not respond. There was no need to. Once that process was complete, this would not even be a discussion anymore. You don't need to concern yourself with that. Maria replied sharply, her eyes turning cold as they settled on Sophia. There was no attempt to hide the hostility. First, this woman had married Razeal, and now she had the audacity to speak to her like that. The thought made something tighten in Maria's chest. Fine, she told herself, forcing it down. The moment she regained full control, the first thing she would do was wipe that expression off her face. The thought was firm, something she had already decided. Still, she did not linger. This was not the time to waste on petty clashes. I will come, of course. She turned her gaze toward Razeal. Her tone steadied, but there was something absolute in it. Wherever you are, I will be there. It was not a request, and it was not something she intended to negotiate. I will too. Nancy spoke from the side, more composed but just as certain. Staying behind was not an option. She was always in danger from that accursed fate, and only Razeal seemed to know the way. No faction would dare target her after knowing who she was, and even if someone tried, she was not helpless. She was strong, more than capable of protecting herself. Now that she was fully healed, she could finally use her strength without restraint. There was no reason to hide. Razeal nodded, accepting it without comment, and shifted his attention toward the remaining council members. His gaze settled on Lord Thul and Lord Dorn. We will be leaving. His tone was direct, already moving past the discussion. In the meantime, you two will handle the capital. There was no hesitation in his voice. It sounded less like a suggestion, and more like a settled decision. My guards will manage things, but assist them if they come to you. And the list my guard will ask for, prepare it properly. His eyes lingered on Murnthul. I expect you to be professional. Do not play games with me. Murn met his gaze and gave a short nod. There was no resistance, only a quiet acceptance of the situation. And take care of my other team members, Razeal added, still looking at him. Inform them about my departure. You can rely on them as well if anything comes up. I will handle it, Murn replied. His tone shifted, losing authority and gaining compliance. For a brief moment, even he was aware of it. It almost felt like he was responding to a superior, not an equal. But he did not resist the thought. This was wartime. Formalities did not matter. Efficiency did. And truthfully, he would have done the same regardless of being told. Razeal did not waste any more time. He turned to Nissa. Direction. Distance. The most active front. Nissa answered without delay, giving him clear details. North. The northernmost city. 34 to 40 kilometers around to that distance. That is where the pressure is highest. She pointed to a direction. He nodded once. That was enough. Without another word, the shadow beneath them shifted. At first, it was subtle, a faint ripple across the stone floor. Then it deepened, spreading outward in a widening circle, swallowing the light. The edges darkened unnaturally, as if the ground itself was opening into something deeper. The council members instinctively stilled. The shadow expanded into a perfect circle. Silence settled over the chamber. They had never seen anything like it. Not a spell. Not a formation. Not any known method of movement. Even as great saints, this was unfamiliar, strange, and unsettling. Razeal did not pause to explain. He glanced once at the others, a brief signal, and stepped forward. His figure sank into the darkness as if it were liquid, vanishing without resistance. Gone. Dorn stepped closer, unable to hide his curiosity. What is that? He muttered, leaning toward the edge of the shadow. His mind raced through possibilities. Transport? Instant travel? Resource movement? Trade routes? The implications stacked, each more valuable than the last. The practical applications alone were absurd. No one answered him. Maria stepped forward and entered the shadow, her form disappearing just as easily. Sophia followed, unfazed, as if this were familiar to both. Nancy came next, her fascination clear. Even as she stepped in, her eyes lingered on the edges of the portal, trying to understand something that clearly refused to be understood. After a brief pause, Grace moved. There was a flicker of hesitation, but it did not last. She stepped forward and entered. Nissa watched for a moment, then followed, her expression steady but thoughtful. Kael came last, slower than the rest, his gaze sharp as he approached the shadow. For all his experience, for all his battles, this was outside his understanding. He stepped in anyway. The chamber fell silent again. They appeared in the middle of a burning city, the Silver Shield City. For a brief second, no one moved. The ground beneath their feet was cracked and uneven, the main road buried under debris and dust. The air felt heavy, thick with smoke and ash, carrying the sharp smell of burning stone and blood. Around them, everything was in ruins. Buildings had collapsed into heaps of rubble, streets were barely recognizable, and people ran in every direction without order. Some screamed, some called names, some tried to get away. The sound came next. Explosions, distant but constant. The crash of stone hitting ground. The sharp, panicked cries of civilians. Orders shouted by soldiers trying to hold whatever line was left. It was not a battlefield in the usual sense. There were no visible enemy soldiers, no formations, no clear front line, just chaos. Soldiers and civilians moved past them in a rush. Some carried wounded soldiers on their shoulders, blood dripping onto the broken road. Others dragged injured civilians, trying to get them somewhere safer, though it was not clear where safe even was anymore. Some civilians had joined in, helping however they could, lifting debris, pulling people out, and guiding the injured away. It did not matter who was who anymore. Everyone was just trying to survive. Above it all, death kept falling. From the sky, massive boulders rained down in relentless waves. Not random, not scattered, deliberate. Entire sections of the city were being crushed under sheer weight. Houses, streets, people, everything beneath those strikes was erased without distinction. The attackers were not aiming for soldiers alone. They were not even trying to engage properly. They were simply destroying the city. Razeal lifted his gaze. High above, barely visible through the haze, flying creatures circled far in the sky, too high for normal counterattacks. From that height, they dropped the boulders with precision, turning the city into a killing field without ever stepping into it. No enemy in sight. Just the result. It was devastation. Sophia's expression hardened as she took in the scene. Her eyes moved across the bodies scattered along the road. Men, women, the elderly, children, some crushed under debris, some lying where they had fallen, some still barely moving but clearly beyond help. Disgusting methods, she muttered under her breath, her voice low but sharp. This was not war. This was slaughter without even the pretense of a fight. Nancy did not last long. The moment her eyes lingered on one of the bodies, a small child half buried under shattered stone, she turned away and vomited to the side, her shoulders trembling. Even for someone used to conflict, this was different. There was no structure here, no meaning to the deaths, just indiscriminate destruction. Grace stood frozen. This was the first time she had seen something like this. Her face went pale, her eyes wide as she tried to process the scene. She had seen blood before, duels, executions, controlled violence within palace walls, but this was something else. This was scale. This was helplessness. This was watching a city die in real time. Her fingers tightened at her sides, her breathing uneven as the reality settled in. This is her kingdom? Kael did not hesitate. The moment he understood what was happening, his expression twisted with anger. His jaw tightened, teeth grinding as he looked up at the sky. Without a word, he pushed off the ground and shot upward, his body cutting through the air to intercept the falling boulders. One after another, he struck them mid-air. Kicks and blows shattered, or deflected them before they could reach the city below. It was not enough to stop everything, but it was something. And right now, that was all he could do. Nissa closed her eyes briefly. She exhaled slowly, the weight of the situation settling in her chest. This was exactly what she had feared, and worse. The reports they had received did not match this at all. The last confirmed information had placed the enemy at the fortress lines, still engaged with defensive forces. That had been manageable, predictable. They had believed one great saint at this border would be enough to hold the line, while they prepared further reinforcements. But this was not a gradual advance. This was a collapse. If the attack had reached this deep into the city, then the fortress had fallen. There was no other explanation. If the fortress had fallen this quickly, how many had died there? How many soldiers had been wiped out before anyone could even react? Her thoughts tightened. They had miscalculated, not just in scale, but in speed. There had been no warning of an army moving this fast, no intelligence suggesting an assault of this intensity. But the attack reaching this deep into the city was enough to tell her how bad things had become. Nissa clenched her hand, the tension running up her arm before she forced herself to release it. She steadied her breathing, pushing the surge of anger and regret back down. They had been careless. There was no point denying it now, but standing there and thinking about it would not change anything. What mattered was what they did next. They needed to act, fast, and without mistakes. No more unnecessary casualties. Her gaze shifted toward Razeal. Whatever he intended to do, this was the moment for it. If he truly had the confidence he showed earlier, it should reflect here. But she paused. He was not moving. He stood there, completely still, as if everything around him, the falling boulders, the chaos, the screams, had been pushed out of focus. His eyes were fixed somewhere ahead. Nissa followed his line of sight. At a distance, partly buried under the remains of a collapsed house, a man lay on the ground. His body was broken badly, too badly. Even from here, it was clear he did not have much time left. Blood had soaked through what remained of his clothes, pooling beneath him. Beside him, a child knelt. 7, maybe 8 years old. Small hands gripped at the man's torn clothing, shoulders shaking as he cried, "Father, don't leave me." The boy sobbed, his voice breaking under the weight of it. The man coughed weakly, forcing his eyes open. "No. You are strong, son. Don't cry." His voice was rough, strained, but he forced it out. "This is not the time for crying. Look at me." He tried to lift his head, but barely managed. His stomach was crushed in. There was no saving him. Still, his eyes held a sharp, stubborn clarity as they fixed on his son. He was not thinking about himself anymore. He was thinking about what came after. "Your mother is gone, and I won't be there much longer either," he continued, breath uneven, but his tone hard. "You have to take care of yourself, all right? You hear me?" The boy nodded quickly through tears. I will, father. Promise me." The man's hand, slick with blood, gripped the boy's arm with what strength he had left. His eyes sharpened further, almost desperate now. "You will remember this moment, this pain, what someone took from you." He coughed again, blood spilling from his mouth, but he did not stop. "Someone attacked us. You will have to take revenge for us. For this pain." His voice grew harsher, more forceful despite his failing body. "Will you? Father, don't go. Please don't leave me." The boy cried harder, shaking his head. That was all he could think about. Not revenge. Not anything else. Just that the one person he had left was slipping away. "Listen to me," the man forced out, his grip tightening. "I said revenge. Those who attacked the country." His words broke, but the intent did not. "Kill them. Burn them. Everyone." His voice cracked under the strain. "You have to promise me." He did not want to say it. That much was clear even through the pain in his face. But he said it anyway, because he believed the boy would not survive without something to hold on to. The boy hesitated, his breathing uneven, his small frame trembling. Aye. But then he looked at his father's eyes, and something shifted. The fear did not disappear, but something else layered over it. Anger, pain, confusion turning into something harder. "I will," the boy said, his voice shaking but no longer breaking. "I will, father." The man's grip loosened slightly. "I will burn the kingdom to ashes. The one that attacked us." The boy continued, wiping his tears with a dirty sleeve, smearing blood across his face without noticing. "I promise. I will cut them all down until no one is left. Whatever you say." His eyes had changed. The tears were still there, but behind them, something else had taken root. Raw, unfiltered hatred. "I promise," he repeated, quieter now, but steadier. Razeal stood there, watching. He did not move. He did not interrupt. He did not react outwardly at all. Around him, the city continued to fall apart, boulders crashing down, people shouting, the sound of destruction echoing from every direction. But his attention remained on that single scene, calm, silent, as if everything else could wait. Nissa kept her eyes on Razeal, trying to understand what exactly he was seeing in that moment, but there was nothing on his face she could read. No anger, no urgency, not even the usual indifference she had come to expect. Just stillness. It made her hesitate. Was this his first time seeing something like this? She wondered briefly. Even she felt the weight of the scene, the destruction, the loss, but she had learned long ago that freezing in moments like this only made things worse. You acted, or people died. It was that simple. She let out a quiet breath and stepped closer, intending to snap him out of it. A light shake, maybe a word, anything to bring him back to the present. But her hand did not reach him. He was already gone. No motion, no warning. One moment he stood beside her, the next there was only empty space where he had been. Her pupils trembled. Above the broken street, right where the man and his son were, a massive boulder was descending. It was easily 15 feet wide, casting a heavy shadow over them. It was seconds from impact. Razeal appeared directly above them, positioned between the falling boulder and the two below, his body steady in midair. There was no rush in his movement, no wasted effort, just precise placement. As the boulder closed in, he lifted his hand and struck it with the back of it. The motion was light, almost casual, but the result was not. The moment his hand made contact, the boulder vanished. Not shattered, not cracked, gone entirely, as if it had never existed. A beat later, the force caught up. A sharp wave of wind burst outward from the point of contact, pushing dust and loose debris aside, the air snapping in the direction of his strike. Below, the father and son flinched instinctively, bracing for an impact that never came. They looked up. A figure in a dark crimson suit stood there, just behind the boy, as if he had always been there. The suddenness of it left them stunned, unable to even process how fast he had appeared. Razeal did not look at the man. His gaze settled on the child. His expression remained unreadable. "Chill, kiddo." To be continued. Hope you liked today's video. Join the community by subscribing and dropping a like. I'll be back with another update as soon as possible. See you then.